Our relationship wasn't always like this. There was tension, there was competition, and there was a lot left unsaid. This is the Alova's Chat podcast, and today we're talking about what actually changed between us. This is what we're doing this for, right? It's interesting to see the perspectives that we both grew up. I'm not going to include everything that we spoke about in this episode online because we don't really want all of it out there, and I know that we're meant to be transparent, but a lot of it is very personal. But we'll get what we feel comfortable without.
Hello, Munchkins, and welcome to the Alova's Chat podcast. You're here with Agnesa
and Arena, and this is episode 24, how our relationship dynamic changed throughout the years. I don't think we've actually spoken about this ever, and it may appear that we're best friends, but it wasn't quite the case throughout our years and throughout when we competed. So we decided to come on here, talk a bit about that and sort of what changed, and also the research behind sibling rivalry and competition between people and how that actually impacts relationships growing up. Before we get into that, obviously have to do our ratings. We are currently not sponsored yet, but we're working with Tenzing. So if you want to see us be sponsored by Tenzing, engage. But we found these in Boots. And you're definitely not going to see that, but I'll insert a picture. Wealthy by Boots. This one's the smooth blueberry, and it's electrolytes. We're on our electrolyte rating era.
Yeah.
Anyways, should we try it?
Mm-hmm.
Also, we got these very nice glasses. There's not alcohol in them, it's electrolytes.
Really?
Lack of intense flavour.
It kind of just tastes like the smell of blueberry.
Yeah.
With like sugar.
I don't think there's much sugar in here. I think it's like under 15.
Yeah, but I still feel like it's like more sweet than blueberries.
Yeah. I think I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. It's average.
I'd give it a 6.
Okay, that's very nice of you. So we've got a few questions just to guide us through this. Not really sure how it's going to go, and we've not actually spoken about this to each other. So if you see us not talking for the rest of the week, that might be why. Let's just start from the beginning, from what we can remember, how our days looked like when we were training, and what we personally remembered our relationship to be.
Okay, well, why don't we start off with a typical day first? Because I feel like we should focus on one thing at a time.
Yes.
Well, okay, typical day for me and Arena, I presume. We'd wake up in the morning, we'd play the piano or our instruments. Arena dabbled in violin, flute. I dabbled in cello, piano. Then we'd go to school, and then we'd come back from school and we'd go to training. From like 4:30 till like 8:30, 9. And again the next day.
And again.
Not like not 7 times a week. We didn't train 7 times a week, but we had like on the days we didn't have gymnastics, we had ballet, other like music commitments,
tutoring, swimming.
Yeah, we were like super busy. But yeah, so initially in primary school it was like that, and then secondary school for me looked more like just school and then training, or school then ballet. On the weekends I'd go from gymnastics straight to ballet.
Yeah, I mean, I meant more like our relationship on a typical day, not our typical day
we
schedule.
Wouldn't really at school we wouldn't really see each other.
In different years, we've got 2 years difference.
In secondary, we'd walk 10 minutes to the gym together.
Yeah.
And then train and then go home and sleep. So
there wasn't a lot of communication between us when we were younger. I don't feel like. I think obviously, yeah, we went on holidays with our family, so we had that time together. But our main holiday, which was in Russia, we'd train anyways, and a lot of our time was spent training, or we were preparing for the 11 plus. If any of you guys know what that is, in the UK, it's for grammar schools where it's a series of tests to get into a particular type of school. We do a lot of that. Also, there was a piano at our grandma's house, so we played piano. We'd obviously do the kids stuff.
We'd be on a productive vacation.
Yes, we did love video stuff. Can't lie, I think they were our bonding room.
That's true. No one will ever see those.
No, that would never see the light of day. So it's not like we really spoke about very much when we were little either, I don't feel like.
I mean, not that kids usually talk about life as such.
But we didn't spend as much time together. Like we did in the same vicinity, because obviously we were training, but we didn't really interact with each other because we had friends at training. Like, of course, you're spending the majority of your days there, and it always felt like, oh, let's talk to our friends because we can talk to each other at home, sort of thing. And then, yeah, on holidays, not really. I mean, we were, as a family, we were doing activities and we were just messing around. So, I don't know, how would you describe the relationship?
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it like bad. I wouldn't say that we didn't really have a relationship. It was just not so. It was just a bit like distant. Like we were both just doing our own things and both just, whilst we were doing the same thing, focusing on our own kind of stuff. And like, yeah, you'd support when the other person is competing and stuff, but I don't know, I think we were just so invested in our own successes that it was I don't know, I just feel like until the age of 15 I was just going on like just a bit of a robot, you know. I don't remember having many thoughts. That sounds bad. Not that I was like not thinking, but I just like my thoughts were school, training. I didn't really have any outlooks on life until probably afterwards, just because I didn't really have the time to like deep things.
No, I agree. It was more so, oh, I've got this, this, and this to get done. I need to do this.
Yeah, and I suppose when you're
and then we've got a competition next week.
Yeah, and when you're on such an intense schedule, it's like, okay, who really has the time to think about anything else? I wouldn't really go to my friends' birthday parties. Like,
yeah, we didn't really have much of a social life either.
I'd miss school as well, like half the time being at a training camp. So, yeah, missed a lot of school events, school trips.
Yeah.
Alas, it was worth it, I think.
Why do you say that?
Because
since you're saying that,
I don't know. I think it's taught me more. I think it's given me a very, not different, but I think it's given me an interesting take on life now, and like, I suppose it's just taught me more.
In what sense?
I don't know. I can't really explain it.
Is it taught you more about yourself, your values, your worldview? Taught you more about what you want from life, or is it taught you more about something else?
Probably, yeah, like more about what I want from life. It's just given me I think a slightly different outlook on it. I don't know, I can't really describe it. I don't regret missing any of the stuff at school, and like I remember I wasn't able to go on a residential trip because I had a major competition that weekend, but I was just like, yeah, it's what it is. Can't go, guys. Like, because I had my own experiences.
Yeah.
I had my own experiences, which, to be honest, were like cooler for me. Like going abroad to compete was much more fun than going and hanging out with my classmates.
Fair. I feel like I had a different experience because I like didn't have the social aspect, but I also didn't get to the same level as you. So I was just kind of in the middle where I didn't really get either of like the coolest things. So I don't know if I'd say I regret missing the social events. But I don't really, I'm still very conflicted about how I feel about my gymnastics years. Yeah, on that actually, do you feel like, because for context, when we were younger, we did everything that was the same. So we did rhythmic gymnastics, we did piano, we did swimming, we did ballet, we did everything together. Do you feel like that created a comparison between us from your side?
Yes. And this is not necessarily, well, okay, obviously, like in gymnastics, yes, but I feel like you could talk more about the gymnastics side, but let's say I was talking more about music and stuff. We also did occasionally share the same music teacher, and it'd just be a constant thing of like, obviously, we'd go one after another because what's the point of us going different times? And it was always the case of like, oh, like you practice less than your sister, or
but you'd always end up doing better.
No, but like, no, I'm like saying, like, I don't know why teachers always felt the need to be like, oh, your sister can do this, why can't you do that? Your sister can play this scale clean, why can't you? Or like, your sister practiced for like this much time, why can't you? It's like,
it was always the first point of reference.
Yeah. And I feel, and since we were so involved in the same activities and had like the same teachers who knew both of us, it was like a constant comparison, like all the time, whatever. Even if they didn't outright say it, it was always kind of there.
Yeah, I agree. I think
sometimes it was outwardly said, might I add.
A lot of the time, especially in music, it was very outwardly said.
I remember that one teacher. I never practiced piano. Like, it was bad, but there was a period of time where I didn't practice at all. And Arena practiced like every day. Every lesson, he'd be like, to me, I can tell you practiced a lot.
Then to me, you'd be like, you don't practice this.
It's like, I was literally getting
the wrong way round.
I was getting worse.
Wrong person. Yeah, I was getting worse for some reason, even though I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it.
I was just there for the vibes.
She was chilling, and she was improving.
I don't think I was improving. You just thought I was.
Oh yeah, I think that pissed me off a lot. I'm putting so much effort into piano, and she's getting all the credit.
Right, but at the time, okay, no, but this is like, for our relationship at the time, like, it didn't really cross my mind how it would affect you. And I think that's kind of what made it a bit difficult for us to establish a good relationship, is that I was young and like, I didn't have many thoughts back then. I just kind of did things because I had to and wanted to.
Yeah. There's research that was published in the International Journal of Sports Psychology that found that coaches often, whether that's consciously or unconsciously, drew comparisons between siblings that train together. And I mean, that was very fairly evident in our life. And what it does is it externalizes that competition in a way that makes it a lot harder to separate the sport comparison of things, like the sports rivalry, between your personal relationship. And the comparison is no longer what's done in private, in your own head, but it's done publicly and repeatedly, and not only by your coaches, but by, your friends, your family, like the public, judges, the audience. So it's done everywhere, and it's so drilled into your brain that you can't detach from it because it's such a prevalent part of your life. I just wanted to ask a question to Agnes, because I know my answer to this. But do you ever wish that we had something completely separate from each other?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
In the sense that
let's do a why, because I feel like
I enjoyed the fact that we did gymnastics together, because we even, like, in acro we did joint routine. I enjoyed that. I thought that was really good. But as we started transferring to rhythmic gymnastics and things started to get more intense, like, yeah, I kind of wish that we did different activities so as to not cause, like, tensions between us. And it wasn't really like active tension, it was more like a underlying,
I think,
competitive state that is fine to have, I think, outside of family. But when it comes to family, like, always trying to, like, prove yourself to your other family, I think, I kind of wish that we did different sports in that sense, that we kind of had our own thing going.
I think a lot of it was to do. The thing is, none of it was issues between us. I think it was how it was spoken about between coaches, like how normalized it was to compare us between each other, how normalized it was, like, even at home, like, we'd get back from training and training was discussed, and then we'd be sort of compared in a way, just like on how training went in that way. Like, I feel like we were always made to discuss our performance, and then it was made relative to each other rather relative to our own training. So I think that played a role, and I also think the type of people we are and the personalities that we had when we were young and obviously now played a big role, because we're two different people, and what we value and the way we go about things is obviously different. I feel like, how would you describe yourself as a child, like, personality wise?
Interesting. Hard to say if I actually had a personality. I'm not being funny. I'm genuinely, when I tell you my thoughts, I just,
You started when you were younger than me.
It sounds kind of bad, but I was kind of just existing until I stopped gymnastics. And I think just having lost such a massive part of my life got me thinking about my life. And then I had more time for thoughts and stuff. And that's when I kind of, like, started to think about things, think about what I want from life and the kind of person I want to be. Yeah, I was very, very, very timid, as in did not speak practically in school. I was very just like, I was like that kid in class where it's like, oh, she's a pleasure to teach, but it's like, really, I'm only a pleasure to teach because I literally don't say anything and I just get the work done. And then at training, I'd be the same.
You just get things done.
I'd be submissive. Yeah. Is that the right word? Like, coach tells you what to do, I'll do it. Like,
highly coachable.
That's the word. I was a highly coachable individual. But in a sense, that did have its downsides too, because working with a coach is a two-way street. And so yeah, some coaches I got along with better. Others it was a bit more difficult to find like things that worked. But like if I just did as I was told, and I suppose that was my personality. There wasn't much like I was never someone to talk back or argue. In fact, if I was to get upset, I'd just cry. And yeah.
I see that. How would you describe me as a child?
Similar in the sense that you were highly coachable because you were very like respectful. You never talked back, argued with a coach, and that you did what you were told as well. I think though that you were a little more like vocal, maybe, or just like I was really quiet. You were not as quiet as me. Slightly more like I don't know what's the right word. Not vocal, but expressive.
I feel like that's such a gymnastics term to use.
Stubborn for sure.
Yeah.
Because I would say we're both competitive, but I am competitive. Although I feel like I don't come across that way, but I am. But like Arena's competitive. Like you don't want to go on her bad side.
Yeah.
Don't want to get caught in the midst of her.
Yeah, I feel like that was probably the one thing that caused the tension on my side of things. Was I still am, maybe not to the same level, but I was very competitive and I was very determined. And I feel like not saying that Agnesa didn't put in a lot of work, because she did, she put in a lot of work. But I feel like relative to the results that I got, it just never was enough, if that makes sense. And not only in gymnastics, I feel like that came across in a lot of other aspects of my life, where it's just like never quite there. Yeah, like I'm trying to get examples.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'll give an example of like where it's coming from my perspective is that I think in gymnastics, I think because of the like the age group I was in, we were different age groups, and I just think that coaches didn't pay enough attention to you as you deserve.
Coaches had favourites.
100%, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them.
And I wasn't one of them.
Which is not to say that like I didn't put in work. I did, but like Arena put in work that went unnoticed in a sense. Like she was the type of person to be on the side of the carpet working hard, but unfortunately not given enough attention for her to progress. Would you say that's accurate? Because that's like how I remember it. Like I get more.
Yeah, I
like,
was always left
personal
to like
attention.
the end to like play. So the way that our gymnastics works, I don't know what it's like for other people who have been in rhythmic gymnastics, but you have a carpet, and obviously when you play with music, like you rehearse fully, only one person can really use the carpet at once. So you'd be on the side, and then you'd take turns to play your routines. And yeah, if you're a favourite, then obviously you get more time spent on your routines with the attention. And I was always left to like the very end, or like I remember sometimes I didn't even play and I'd get upset. And I just remember training on the carpet with like the extra carpet, because we had like a strip of extra carpet. Um, and I think throughout like my life a lot, this is not like asking for sympathy, it's just understanding where the tension between us came from and sort of how it shaped us. I always felt like I gave so much, but
I'll just clarify one thing. You said that like favourites were often played a lot, but I think I'd probably rephrase that to say, because I think, yeah, coaches have favourites, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. But it was also the fact that certain girls had certain competitions or like were part of the team, like the national team, so therefore,
yeah, of
in a
course.
sense, had to be prioritized. But because they were naturally slightly favored, maybe that's why they were progressing so well. And then it's like a positive feedback cycle.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then like the more they progress is like the further pushed aside you are.
Yeah. But yeah, like I mentioned, I noticed that a lot in other areas of my life, where it was just never quite enough. Like with the 11 plus, like I didn't get into the school the first time, and I'd put in so much effort and work, and I did fortunately get in later on, and part of that was luck, which I'm very grateful for. And even with music, like we mentioned earlier, like I'd put in so much time and effort practicing, and then I'd be like told, "Oh, you didn't practice."
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
And
With gymnastics,
yeah.
like I'll say, I worked hard.
Yeah, no,
and
I'm not dismissing the fact that you worked hard at all, and I know
No.
you worked hard, but in my head, I was putting in like 110%.
And I was practicing like maybe once a week.
And yeah, because I always try and put 110% into everything I do.
Same.
Yeah.
It's just certain things
It's just
fall aside.
the work.
Different priorities.
My track record has just been, it's never been quite there. Yeah, like it's never been quite enough. And I remember even like something as small as netball tour, in secondary school. Like I'd play netball on the team, but it'd always be like B team, not A team, or like a reserve. In a lot of sports teams as well.
Did you go on netball tour?
But then I played with the years younger, so it was always never
like,
quite.
Just like not quite there. Yeah. Having
it's
put
shown
in
up.
like always, yeah, having put in maximum effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of translates into how we see ourselves now in all aspects of life. Like you're someone who will always put 100% effort into everything you do, regardless of what it is, like work, powerlifting, what you do now, like in all aspects of your life. Piano, doing her diploma. Guess who's not? Guys, piano just. I like music.
Yeah.
I like some of the Gaga's music. Anyway, sorry. Oh, so. Can you please insert that?
Yeah, I'll find it.
But like, yeah, it translates into other things, and like even our relationship, which is what this is about.
And probably go on to that.
Yeah, and your relationship with like friends, family, basically all of them. It's like, would you say you still feel that way? I don't know.
Definitely how I show up for myself as well. Like I think especially,
and that's important.
I think definitely like my relationships, like friends wise, and people like that. I'd say less so family now.
Well, you don't give 100% to your family.
No, it's not that, but like.
Oh, you still feel that way?
I still feel like I'm not quite. It's just turning into a therapy session.
It's a podcast. I reckon we should get serious.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm not ever like enough. even with myself, I think that shows up the most with my like self-worth.
But that's really interesting because this is what we're talking about.
And I think that's where my competitive aspect and like my determination comes from, because I was always like, it was always drilled into my head that I'm like, the one good thing that the coaches said about me was that I was determined.
Yeah. But that's exactly it. And I think that is so important that as to how kids are shaped when they're young, because then it like instills specific things in them that they then take later on in life.
Yeah. Like, so it was never like I was good at something.
Yeah, she's a hard worker, she's so determined. Yeah, and like for me, it was always she's so quiet, she's so shy. It's like
guys,
people might know me now, but I'm more introverted, but that's not to say that I'm shy per se. It's like people always tell me I was shy, and like, yeah, now you've made me uncomfortable. I won't talk to you.
Yeah,
there's that kind of thing, and it's really hard to like grow out of those and change the way you think about yourself.
Yeah, and I have seen it show up quite a lot.
It's kind of a segue though to what we were really talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got a bit deep there for a second.
Apologies, but this is a podcast, and we do really want to talk about our experience, especially because it's not really widely spoken about, I don't feel like.
I don't think anyone's really spoken about it.
And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, right? We're trying to get our experience across and get other people's perspectives across, and help people who might be in the same position as us or in similar positions to understand that they're not alone, and that there are people out there who understand sort of how sport shapes your life, whether or not how sport shapes your life, whether or not you're starting out now or if you've been doing it for a long time, and how, yes, it's such an integral part.
Bro, my stomach's gurgling. Cut that out, please.
Yeah, it's such an integral part of life. Like, fitness is so incredibly important, but also there's so many other elements to it that's just not seen on the surface level and online.
Yeah.
This one's interesting. Weiss and Stunts, sick name, man. With a Z as well. Stunts. Sorry. Showed that female athletes tended to find their athletic identity in relation to significant others, including siblings, more so than males do, which means that the comparison dynamic in shared sports hits differently for sisters than it does for brothers. And that relationship between self-worth and performance is more tightly connected, which makes the challenging aspects a lot harder, which does make sense for example, what I felt like, what I've spoken about, like my self-worth and my lack of like performance relative to Agnesa has definitely impacted how I see myself now. Not necessarily in comparison to Agnesa anymore, but definitely has impacted that.
Oh, I think we should talk. About our relationship.
I was gonna say let's move on to that. Yeah. Yeah. So we mentioned how we were being compared a lot.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah. So I've been speaking loads. I feel like I need to.
Because obviously Arena stopped gymnastics before me. I then carried on and did ballet and whatnot, and that's kind of when we kind of took different directions in a sense. So
yeah.
How would you say our relationship changed when you? I remember the first thing you took on was figure skating.
Yeah. I believe so.
Like, you did a lot.
Yeah.
But how would you say that? Let's think about the end of like our secondary school days.
Yeah, I think I had knee surgery, and that's kind of when I stopped gymnastics. I think I'd gotten to a point, I think like maybe 2-3 years before that, when I was really starting to not enjoy it anymore, because I think I was like 13, 14, and obviously you start understanding kind of who you are as a person and kind of what you value in life. Did you take away your microphone so you can burp?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started realizing that I didn't actually enjoy rhythmic gymnastics. I think it was not necessarily the sport. I think the sport is beautiful. I think it's just everything around it for me. And I really wish that I had been placed into something completely different to mess up from the get go. I think even the way I am, and like even your body, right, it's wired to do different things. And mine wasn't as immaculately predisposed to rhythmic gymnastics as other people's were. Agnesa was more genetically inclined to
Yeah, I would say
gymnastics.
that's so fair to say, because that's another reason why coaches tended to prioritize people with so-called natural abilities.
Yeah.
And yes, it makes sense in a way. Like, I don't know, like for me, my like arches, like I had good arches.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it makes sense for coaches to use that to an advantage, but that's not to say that those who don't necessarily have those natural immaculate predispositions deserve to be pushed aside.
Yeah. But again, we're going off topic. I think, yeah, that knee surgery was low key a blessing. That's such a weird string of words together. But it kind of gave me a reason to stop without giving up in a way. And it was also, I was coming into year 12. I remember hobbling on my crutches in year 12 up the stairs. Got to leave class early. Just before COVID. Yeah, it was around the time. I'm trying to remember when I started figure skating. It was in year 12, I think. Year 11, year 12. I think it was year 12 actually. I can't remember. Anyways, around that time when I'd stopped, it was honestly such a relief. I think. I think it was just such a weight off my shoulders that I got to do something that I resonated with. And don't get me wrong, figure skating is not that far out from rhythmic gymnastics, but even that gave me like the sense of relief that I had something of my own, something that I chose, something that resonated more so with me, even though I wouldn't say it did, but at the time,
Yeah,
it was,
like something fresh,
yeah,
something of your own.
yeah, it was something my own, and it was definitely, yeah, a sense of relief.
Do you, sorry, were you going to say something else?
No,
Do you think that, and I have my answer for this, but do you think that that changed our relationship between us?
not immediately,
Yeah.
but yes, I'd
Okay.
say. I don't think it was immediate. I think, I don't, because A levels was such a long part of our life and it was COVID and you were still in gymnastics. I think part of me still not, there was some sort of resentment not towards you, but I think it was more so towards gymnastics and you were still training, especially in COVID, and you were always training at home.
Yeah.
I think there was still that resentment. I think what changed our relationship is when you quit gymnastics entirely. When gymnastics was out of our lives, um, not the only reason being for it, but on my side, I feel like that's sort of what changed things. Not consciously, even. I think it was a
Yeah, I don't
subconscious
think
thing.
that's the thing. I don't think it's conscious, because I would agree with you. I would say that, because I remember our relationship was still like it was so distant.
That's the
Even
best
when
way
you
to
were doing
describe it.
figure
Yeah,
skating, like that was the part where you went off and kind of did your own thing, and I was still doing gymnastics. But it's like we didn't really, like we were both just doing our own thing.
yeah,
I don't even remember you taking your A levels, because I don't remember seeing you.
yeah. We only really started being friends again, or like talking to each other like 2 years ago, I'd say. When I was in
Yeah.
like mid-second year of uni is sort of when things changed a lot for me. And that's for a lot of different reasons. I think year 13, first year uni, and the first half of second year uni, I just wasn't in the best place. And there were a lot of things going on where I just wasn't a very nice person in my eyes. Like reflecting back now, and that definitely played an impact on our relationship. But I don't think we realized that it played so much of an impact because we weren't even close. Like we were so distant already that it just wasn't, again, consciously impacting our relationship. Of course, there was like so many self-conscious things because, you know, you have someone that's supposedly meant to be so close to you, but is so far. What would you say?
Yeah, I suppose, like you were saying, that I didn't really consider it an issue just because, again, like I was still doing the same thing. I was still going to school, I was still training, I was still busy. And I didn't really have time to think about it.
Yeah.
And then, like, you kind of went for uni, you moved out.
First year, yeah.
And I don't think I saw you. I think I maybe saw you for my birthday.
I think I came home like once or twice.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we would obviously speak, but even then, hardly. I didn't know anything about what was going on in your life.
Yeah.
Which now to me seems insane because we literally
spend 24/7 together. Yeah. It's really interesting because our whole lives we weren't really very close, and then like, I mean, it's so grateful for it now because we're literally best friends. Well, from my eyes, we're best friends.
Don't worry, you're my bestie too.
And it's crazy to think that I didn't have Agnesa throughout my whole life because I feel like life would have been so much easier if there was someone to talk to about how I was feeling. Especially with like the comparison at such a young age.
Yeah, and mind you, we were both young. It's so difficult when you're not even fully understanding these kinds of things. Like I don't, even if you were to talk to me about it,
you wouldn't.
I wouldn't have understood, and I would have listened, sure, but I wouldn't have really understood where you were coming from simply because
I don't think I would have understood where I was coming from.
Yeah.
So what we were just talking about, actually, there's a research on this. So how we mentioned that even if it is subconscious, that removal of gymnastics, not necessarily now because Agnesa is still like involved in rhythmic gymnastics, but it doesn't impact me at all, and it doesn't impact our relationship. But when she stopped, competing, I think there's research by Stewart, Verbruge, and Belfus. Apologies if I'm getting these names incorrect. But they found that sibling relationships typically improve significantly in early adulthood as the competitive context of childhood and adolescence is removed. And Victor Cicirelli's extensive lifespan research found that the majority of adults report that their sibling relationship is one of their most important close relationships, even if it was difficult earlier in life. It's really interesting to see how, even though we didn't notice it earlier, it is even like documented in research, right? And how it is proven to be an impactor. How did you feel about our relationship?
I'm telling you, bro, I didn't feel anything.
But even like, okay, when you were growing up, like in GCSEs and A levels, like when I went off to uni, what was sort of going through your mind?
I think obviously, like, because we were always taught, like how we were raised, that like your siblings are so important, like they'll be with you your whole life. So I think in my head I had that sense. I was like, I know my sister will be there for me all the time. I know how important how important we are to each other. But like it was just kind of there, and I wasn't like so much because relationships take effort, right? Whatever they are. And I feel like neither of us were like putting in effort
Yeah.
as such. And it was just kind of like if someone to ask you, oh yeah, obviously like I do anything for her, whatever. But that's because it was just kind of like
It was a value that was
yeah,
installed
a
in
value,
us.
exactly. It was more like a value rather than an active effort.
Mm.
So I would say that's kind of the way I felt about it. Like it was never a bad relationship. Like, okay, yeah, siblings squabble naturally, but it was more so a very distant relationship, as I've already mentioned. Yeah, and like you said, like we wouldn't really like talk to each other about how we're feeling.
Even like pre-competition.
Yeah, and that's what's actually really surprising to me because now if I was to have a sister who competed in gymnastics, I would, or even like your powerlifting,
And your
I'd
calisthenics, yeah.
I'd ask you how you're feeling and we could talk about it
Yeah.
and get to deep reasons. But I guess we just never really did that. Partly because of our maturity level.
But also don't think it was facilitated either.
Yeah.
Because of the constant like pitting against each other. It was just like, oh, okay, she's my rival, not my sister.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think what was like kind of the turning point. I suppose the turning point of our relationship was, like you said, halfway through uni when we kind of just, I think maybe both started. I mean, I was still, no, I wasn't training. I'm trying to
I think
think.
it was around the time you did stop
Around the
training.
time I stopped, yeah, and was kind of recovering from, I also had surgery, but
Yeah.
recovering from that, and you kind of, because I remember around that time is when
I went, oh yeah, because I
you
visited
came,
you in hospital.
yeah, is when like you kind of really supported me and helped me through that. And I think maybe even then I would say. And then because you were going to the gym, I started going to the gym for like rehab. And we both kind of, I would say,
From then onwards.
yeah,
Yeah.
like refound our passion for like sports.
Yeah.
And maybe in a way bonded over that. And since we went in different directions from the get go, really.
Yeah.
You were always more into like powerlifting and stuff, and I kind of can't squat to save my life. So yeah, I kind of dabbled more in the calisthenics side of things. And then like, cause it works. Like we go to the gym, we both do our own thing, but like, she always come watch my handstands. We'll like bench and I'll do pull-ups in the same place. Like,
yeah.
Don't really know what I'm getting at here. I suppose that was the turning point of our relationship. Is yeah, after I stopped recovering from my surgery and like you were back home at that point.
Yeah.
You really helped me and supported me through that, and then just yeah, starting the gym. And then we just yeah, we kind of just like our values started to really align.
Yeah.
Our interests started to really align. I went to some of your powerlifting competitions. That was really fun. I dragged Arena along to some of calisthenics events, and our like they kind of just merged, intertwined, and I think that's really
Yeah, I
nice.
agree. I think it was really interesting because we didn't really know anything about each other. Like we barely knew who each other's friends were, like what we thought about life. Like I didn't even know what she wanted to do with life. You know. Like,
oh, neither did I. But like, yeah.
But even to that extent, like when we started rekindling our relationship, it was like I'd met an entirely new person to the person that I'd been living with for however many years that was, like 17 years.
Yeah.
which is,
That's pretty crazy.
yeah. Like I said, I feel like it wasn't necessarily, I felt like I held a lot of resentment, and not necessarily towards Agnesa, but I think towards everything in general. But the only person I could take it out was on Agnesa, and I feel like that did damage our relationship. And a lot of it was my fault because, like you said, you didn't really think about it that much. And I think it was more so from my end.
And I think that's interesting you point that out, because now that I'm thinking about it, I guess that there was more of an emotional aspect of it from you, like an emotional. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what I just said.
Yeah.
Emotional aspect of it from you rather than me. I was just kind of just.
You're just chilling, you're vibing.
Vibing is the wrong word.
Yeah, but
I was just carrying on doing what I was set out to do. And yeah, like I didn't really feel any resentment or anything towards you, but I suppose that's because it wasn't so emotionally fueled for me, if that makes sense.
That does.
But then again, that's also an issue then, because like we mentioned, like it's a two-sided effort, and I wasn't putting in effort either. So
yeah, I think it was just more so, I do feel like it was a lot, like majority my fault, looking back, because of all the feelings that I held, and just everything put together, like the coaches, my own mind, the lack of me seeing results and actually feeling like I was doing well, but then seeing Agnesa do so incredibly well and go on to do such incredible things in something that we started doing together. I definitely built up resentment, and I ended up taking it out on our relationship. Not necessarily like vocally or in an outward way, but there was definitely like inward kind of like internal blockages, you could say. But yeah, I think, like you mentioned a couple of years back, it kind of got a lot better, and that's something that I wouldn't change for the world. And we're here now. I mean, we're doing a podcast, and I couldn't ask for anyone better to do it with. Do you feel like that's cute? How do you feel like life would be different if we were placed in different sports?
truthfully, as much as I think it would be great if we were placed in different sports, I think that we wouldn't have the relationship we do now. I don't know. I think it would have taken us in such different paths that
we wouldn't have those shared experiences.
Yeah, we wouldn't have shared experiences and like understanding how like our upbringing shaped the way we think now and our values and how we apply them in life now. So I think, I don't know, we will never know.
I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know. We will never know. And the idea of growing up doing two different things is interesting, but maybe it wouldn't have brought us as close.
Yeah, I think there's a level to it where you have to go through shared experiences to be closer. Why are you laughing?
There's levels to this.
You have to go through shared experiences to get closer with each other, and you definitely did that. I think maybe even having like one thing that was different in our childhood, like having something of our own, would have benefited us and would have taken a lot of the pressure off, I think.
Yeah,
because we're always going for the same goals.
Yeah.
And I think that put more of a stress than anything else did.
Yeah, maybe. Because now we both have different goals. So, well, I don't know what I was trying to get at. But yeah, now we're kind of going on our own paths. But now that our relationship is so much better, we find it much easier to support each other in whatever the other does. And yeah, even if they're in similar spheres, like it's still, there's no pressure on it.
Yeah, that's cool. What would you tell your younger self? Whether that be like for our relationship or for you just in general, like growing as a person. Oh, before we do that, there's actually what you said about having those shared experiences. Kramer and Conger's research found that siblings who navigated high conflict, competitive periods, and came out the other side reported significantly higher levels of trust and closeness than siblings whose relationship had always been easy.
But I agree.
Yeah, so what would you tell your younger self?
I would probs tell my younger self to be more confident and proud in my achievements and to actually to have more self-esteem and realize that my achievements were actually due to hard work. And I'm trying to think how I could phrase this. Because not even so much to believe more in myself, not that I doubted myself ever, but was to just
don't play down your achievements, maybe.
Yeah, in a sense that like don't play down your achievements and be more confident and let that confidence like show through like my performance on the carpet. I would say that's if I was competing again. You?
I don't know how to formulate this. Probably that all the work that you put in isn't for nothing, and even if it's not evident now, it will, and to not stop trying, and that the work that you put in and the performance relative to others isn't something that should determine your self-worth, and it shouldn't, like, all in all, like, probably tell my younger self that you're enough. Don't.
Yeah.
Like, you're your own person.
The work
you're enough.
Yeah, like the work you put in.
You're valuable as you are, and not necessarily what you put in to your work, to your things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a deep one.
Yeah. If any of you guys have had a relationship with a sibling or like a close friend that you felt has been difficult, let us know. Let us know your experience. Sort of where you are now, how it came out on the other end, and any thoughts that you had about this. We apologise if it's very choppy and heavily edited. It's been a very heavy hitting episode
but
for us recording.
Hopefully though, it like some people might be able to resonate with it and realise that they're not alone if you feel this way or if you've had experiences like this. And yeah, we'd obviously love to hear yours. So let us know. Message us.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.